Hello.
Hello.
Here we are. See on the screen, we're sitting there with all these little buildings there. I'll take mine in there. And you see we have snow falling down, and there's the reindeer going across the moon. Pretty exciting, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Brr, snow.
I better put on my socks.
Put on your socks, Ma. It's cold. Anyway, hello. It's Nellie. Nellie is here. Hi, Nellie.
We have more Dutchies here than there.
We have more Dutchies here than you do. Hello, Nilesh. Hi, Roseanne. Push the start button. I already pushed the start button. I pushed it and it started snowing. Anyway, so here we go. And we are doing the Tripura Rahasya. And here's a little bit of introductory reminder from our friend Swami Rama, who says, a great yogi does not belong to any caste, creed, sex, or ethnic group because he has already transcended all such superficial limitations. The knowledge that enlightens such an aspirant is called Tripura Rahasya. Now, we may not feel like we have transcended all those levels of category, but we can take, can we not? We can take the degree to which we understand this to be so, and we may say, okay, well, I'm not able to live from the stance of a Buddha or a Christ or a Krishna or a Swami Rama or pick your person. But isn't it true that you already have this concept and that it makes perfect sense to you?
Yes.
And if we have that, we can proclaim that to ourselves without it being an ego trip.
Or a dogma.
Or a dogma. It's neither a dogma or an ego trip. It's just it's an inner statement of reality. And if you're in the company of friends in satsang who understand what we're talking about, then it doesn't come across as an ego trip or a dogma to say it out loud. And I think there's some value in that I've seen it happen sometimes when I see a person first actually voice this, and often with a sort of hesitation in the voice. Trepidation is a good word. It's like, dare I actually say this out loud? That I am not a creed or a sex. You know, a woman says, I realized I am not a woman. Man says, I realized I am not a man. I'm in a male or female body, but it's not who I am. I'm not of this ethnicity. I am not really a citizen of this country. I am not an American. I am not a Dutchie. I'm not an Indian. Hi, Raj. Raj is with us, and Raj is in the car. And Nilesh says, I'm not Indian.
Good.
I mean, he didn't say it. I just put the words in his mouth. He didn't type it there.
Oh, I thought he was quick.
I was feeding the words into him. Anyway, that's just, I think that we can all know, we all already know that. So it's just when we say it with pride that we get in trouble. Let me impress my friends by sounding like I'm a great philosopher. And the only one, not the only one, but the key person who knows when we're falling into that trap is us ourselves. And we also internally know when we're not falling into that ego trap. And we're just being aware that it's true. And gradually then it becomes more and more clear that it is true. The knowledge that enlightens such an aspirant is called Tripura Rahasya. It is the Rahasya, it is the secret of the one who dwells in the three cities. The Pura is city, like New York City. Tripura is the three cities of waking, dreaming, and deep sleep, Vaisranara, Tejasa, and Prajna, gross, subtle, causal, conscious, active, unconscious, latent, unconscious, different ways of saying it. The text by that name, Tripura Rahasya, is one of the most significant scriptures in the tradition of Tantra Yoga. And elsewhere, we've talked about the so-called schools or levels or categories or types of yoga, Kaula, Mishra, and Samaya. The Kaula Tantra level does a lot of external rituals, maybe fire rituals that are worshiping of or honoring, choose your word, of deities, as if those deities are truly beings who are somewhere. And nothing wrong with the rituals, but it's the external level of this. And then Mishra means the mixed, it's the halfway in the middle. The Samaya, which is what Swami Rama was trying very hard to share with all of us for many, many years, is totally internal. That's what we keep focusing on and what we keep talking about. And that's what this text is oriented towards. Notice when we go through it, it's everything about internal, internal, internal. That's not a criticism or a complaint of the external rituals. But if we understand that they are symbolic things, then they can be very beautiful and enjoyable. And we then are not finding ourselves feeling like culturally, socially required to worship some deities, gods and goddesses that we have some question whether actually exist as a being. You don't have to deal with that, because you see it's a beautiful, beautiful symbol, which is what they really are. The text by that name is one of the most significant scriptures in the tradition of Tantra Yoga. Its beauty lies in the fact that it expounds the lofty knowledge of inner truth while systematically offering practical instructions on Shakti sadhana, the sadhana related to Shakti. Anyway, so the storyline, just again, is remember, we're on chapter 6. I'm just wanting to make sure that we're all on track, and somebody might listen to this in a little bit and not be with us for the previous ones and know where we're coming from. Remember the storyline here, the teacher is Dattatreya, the student is Parashurama. And so as Dattatreya is teaching Parashurama, he, Dattatreya, the teacher, will use stories to contain the teachings. So we're hearing a lot about the story of Hemachuda and Hemalekha. And then Hemachuda is a prince, a wealthy prince. And he married a beautiful, poor young girl from the forest, Hemalekha. Well, it turns out Hemalekha is the enlightened goddess. She's got all the answers. So there's this wonderful, I think of it as humorous, the way she plays him. She plays her husband, the prince, and he's going to show her how to live this glorious life of riches by being now the wife of the prince. And she's bored with the whole thing. Even romance she's bored with. So finally, she turns it around on him and she starts teaching him. And so this is the storyline. And in doing that, she will tell sometimes a story inside of a story. So we have a story that has a story within it. And within that, there's another story. So if we know that, then this is easy to follow. So in the last chapter, there was just a story told, and that story is now complete. Here, this is entitled The Doubts of Hemachuda and the Teachings of Hemalekha on Firm Faith. Hemachuda, the prince, the husband, keeps having doubts. He hears the whole thing. He gets another glimpse of the absolute reality, truth, divine, the light, the infinity, the Atman, the Brahman, the Purusha, etc., etc., etc. And then what happens? The Antakarna, the totality of me, kicks in, and one more time he's overcome by doubt again. Sound familiar? And so then what happens? He goes back, and Hemalekha very patiently explains it to him again. So he keeps having doubt, and he comes back, and anyway. Hearing his beloved wife speak, Prince Hemachuda was astonished and still unsure. He did not know that she was an enlightened being yet. He's figuring it out slowly. Smiling, he asked her,
It's one.
Sweetheart, everything you said seems to be like building a mansion on sand. Your speech and the facts do not match. You are the daughter of a celestial nymph and were brought up by a rishi, a sage. You have just recently reached your adulthood, but the events you are describing would take generations to occur. You talk like a woman possessed by spirits. There is no consistency in your story, the stories that she's been telling him. What can I possibly make of it? Tell me where this maidservant of yours is, and the son who captivated her. Tell me where that city is. Oh, forget all this and just tell me, where is the maidservant? I did not meet any maid. My mother is in the palace. Go ask her. My father has only one wife. Tell me immediately where such a maid is to be found and where her son is. You are talking in parables like that of a barren woman who claims to have a son. Your story reminds me of the comedian in a drama who claimed a barren woman's son is riding a chariot reflected in a mirror, which of course is not possible. He is wearing silver ornaments made from the shiny inner surface of a shell. He killed a king who had not yet been born with weapons made from human horns while fighting in a forest in the sky. He also conquered the mythical city of the Gandharvas and is joining dream women from the dream city. Your story makes as much sense as this one. Hearing him, that brilliant woman spoke again. Now we're back to Hemalekha, the wife, who was trying to get her silly husband, silly is the nice word, her husband to hear. She speaks again. Lord, how can the things I have told you be false? My parables are not false. Speaking untruth destroys the austerities. How can one see beauty in leprosy, and how can one born in a family of truthful people tell lies? The man who diverts the mind of a seeker by lying can never attain happiness in this world or the next. Some of these lines in here are just individual fragments that just sit beautifully and have some relevance. Listen again. The man who diverts the mind of a seeker by lying can never attain happiness in this world or the next. Yet we see it sometimes. O Prince, hear me attentively. One with defective eyesight cannot regain his eyesight by merely pronouncing the words of the remedy. An ignorant person considers helpful advice to be worthless. How can I, your beloved wife, lead you, who sincerely wants to find the truth, to the unreal. How can I do that? Even if my statements are utterly contradictory, you can understand them through the help of your subtle and discriminative intellect. People are accustomed to making judgment in their daily activities. By examining a few details, they understand the whole situation. To help you think clearly about this, let me remind you of one of your own experiences. After having listened to me the other day, why are the objects that previously provided pleasure unpleasant to you now? Why did this happen? They still provide pleasure to you. Now you can determine the validity of my story. O Prince, I am telling you the truth. Please listen to it humbly. Now, somewhere back there, he with great pride told her, as I recall, that he was very humble. Notice the humor, The thing of which I am most proud is my humility. I am such a humble person.
The most humble person.
I'm the most humble person.
Your Olympic humble.
Doesn't work that way, does it? Firm faith is a mother. She protects those who take refuge in her, as a compassionate mother protects her own child in all difficulties. That fool who does not have firm faith in the teachings of the self-realized ones loses wealth, happiness, and reputation. A person without firm faith remains ignorant. And I'll add, note here, please, that firm faith basically means certainty. So if we're talking, as we did a minute ago, if you have some idea, if it has become obvious to you that the nature of myself is consciousness or something like that, if it has become obvious to you that whoever I am is actually not my personality. I've been through enough of life and the kicks and blows of life and the struggles and contemplation and meditation that it has become clear that who I am is actually not my habit patterns. You know what I'm saying when I say that. If that has become clear, then that clarity is faith. That clarity that we have is a level of direct experience. It's not based on the belief system because some book, whether it's Tripura Rahasya or Upanishads or Swami Rama or Bhagavad Gita, it doesn't matter what book it's coming from. It's not about the book. It's about your own direct experience. I have come to see that all of these personality traits and all of my wonderful, charming things are actually not totally who I am. That's certainty. It is direct experience. And it is firm faith. If you know that you have a donut habit, God forbid, poor Adi over here has a donut habit. If he knows that who I am is not my donut habit, then there's a certainty about that. And I say, no, Adi, you need to be going to Donuts Anonymous meeting because you are a donut addict. And he said, no, it's not who I am. There's a sort of firm faith in that. There's a certainty of knowing. And every one of us, isn't this true? I'm saying this to get you to think about it. You already have some aspects of yourself of which you have a very clear sense of certainty. And this is the spirit of firm faith here. That fool who does not have firm faith in the teachings of the self-realized ones. Now, this is not blind faith. They're self-realized. I'm an idiot, so I'm going to believe him because he's self-realized. It's the principles that we're looking there. It's not because it's in this Tripura Rahasya book, for example. The fool who does not have firm faith in the teachings of the self-realized one loses wealth, happiness, and reputation. A person without firm faith remains ignorant. It is firm conviction that sustains the whole and is the life of all. Tell me, how could a child survive without having full faith in its mother? Now, we know that mother is not perfect in some sense, but the child just relies on mother. Isn't that a beautiful, simple metaphor? How can a young man be happy if he does not trust his wife? How can an old man rest peacefully if he has no confidence in the younger generation? How can a farmer till his field if he does not believe in the harvest? Without faith and trust, no one will bother to either collect or renounce the things of the world. Without trust and truth, the world will crumble. If you say the world functions without faith, that is not true. We have a certainty, and this is me speaking, we have a certainty, do we not, in the principle of gravity? We all know this. We just never think about it as faith, but we all understand the nature of gravity. If you're cooking lunch and you take your pot and you put it over the fire to heat the food, you have a certainty that the pot is not going to just float away. It's not going to get beamed up, Scotty, and the pot vanishes and disappears. There's a form of faith. Predicting future events on the basis of past experience requires faith in the causal relationship between past and future. Now, I know that we may be able to see some ways in which that's not true, but in the practical day-to-day world, we all know that there is cause and effect, and it's within the domain of time. Within the domain of time, there is a past, there is a present, and there is a future. If I put the pot of water over the fire, it's predictable that the water is going to get hot after a few minutes or some period of time. It's faith. Without faith, no one can even breathe. So cultivate firm faith and use it to attain sublime happiness. If you think that one should not rely on stupid people, then listen. This thought is based on the faith in their unreliability. There is a faith there. After hearing her brilliant sermon, this was Hemalekha speaking, the prince asked again. Now here comes the prince. See, she's still working him, but he's still slow about hearing. The prince asked again, Hemalekha, according to you, faith is necessary for spiritual growth. You say that I must develop faith in the wise people so that I can attain the state of auspiciousness. One who wants to attain the highest good should not trust the wicked, or he will be victimized. Those who seem good on the surface may be crooked inside and may deceive us, like the fish who becomes the victim of an alluring worm wrapped around a fisherman's hook. There's an image, isn't it? Nice little yummy worm. Therefore, one should discriminate between the wise and honest, the wicked and the deceitful. There are many examples of those who created problems for themselves by trusting someone unwise. Most of us, I think this is probably true, can't prove it. I think most of us have had some moments in our current life where we have fallen for a trap like that and realized, wow, this is really true. There are many examples of those who created problems for themselves by trusting someone who is unwise and those who get out of difficulties by having faith in the wise. But the question is, how can you be certain your judgment about other people, your judgments, plural, about other people are wise or wicked is correct? Your judgment requires scrutiny. Being challenged in this manner, Hemalekha answered her husband, "O prince, listen to me." Here she comes. Listen to me. Listen to me. First, decide whether a man is good or bad, even if you have arrived at that conclusion by having firm faith in great men. This conclusion is still subject to confirmation by the signs and symptoms we see in them. Thus, firm faith will be subverted by reliance on signs and symbols, as explained in the scriptures. If you say that the characteristics of a good man are described in the scriptures, then I ask, how can you believe in the scriptures if you have no faith? If, on the other hand, you do not trust the scriptures, but you accept the reliability of people's statements, then the advice of a human being will be your basis for believing or not believing in something. However, the statements of all human beings are not unanimous. Therefore, people should have firm conviction, but the validity of that conviction must be confirmed by the scriptures. So you have a conviction, you have something, you see it in a certain way. The suggestion here is just double check it against what the texts say. So we have an experience and we don't understand it. And if we can find some reference, something in Yoga Sutras, in Tripura Rahasya, something in Bhagavad Gita or Upanishads, and you look and you say, wow, this is a match. I guess I must be right. I had drawn this particular conclusion living in the world about sadhana and life, etc. And here finally I see that this actually is written down by the sages that came before me. Wow, my intuition must be better than I thought. I'm not so stupid after all. So there's a validation that comes. It's a good thing. I am explaining to you the means of attaining the highest goal of life, Hemalekha is saying. Please listen attentively. Neither those who involve themselves in mere logic, nor those who do not reason at all, neither of them can attain the goal here and hereafter. So we have to use intelligence, but use it wisely. Not just to debate. Long ago, in the direction of Sahyam Mountain, there was a sage named Kaushika living at the bank of the Godavari River. He was very learned. There were hundreds of students under his guidance. One day, in the absence of the master, those students began arguing about the nature of the universe according to their intellectual knowledge. You can imagine it, right? It said the debate is on. During that time, a highly educated Brahmin named Shunga arrived. He used his mental skills and defeated all of them in debate. Lacking faith in the scriptures, that Brahmin had lost his intuitive wisdom. Of course, when you get into a debate, I have found, even when you're trying to avoid a debate, when you get into it and the charges are coming from another side, it feels trapped. It feels like trapped, and there's nothing you can do. The mental skills and defeated all of them in the debate. Lacking faith in the scriptures, that Brahmin had lost his intuitive wisdom. And so the intuitive wisdom, the certain knowing, that firm faith that comes from knowing directly, can get clouded over by the noisiness of the debate. However, he was an adept debater with great power of discussions. The students all agreed that whatever he can be elaborated through evidence must be true. Then Shunga said, Brahmins, listen. You claim that whatever can be proved through evidence must be considered true. But in this way, truth can never be proven, because if the evidence is inconclusive, the conclusion derived from it will be faulty too. Therefore, first, one must evaluate the evidence. The evidence has to be established through some other proof. In order to determine the faultlessness of that new proof, the mind must depend on still other evidence. Thus, a logician falls into the fallacy of infinite regression, and nothing at all can be directly shown to be true. An idea follows an idea, follows an idea, follows an idea, and it just keeps going in a circular kind of way. That's the infinite regression. And it seems to never have an end. It just keeps going. I'm sure you've all had times in some conversation or another with somebody that ended up being about philosophy, and it just keeps going in circles, and you just can't get any of it. That's what it's talking about. Therefore, the thinker, the object, and the source or means of knowledge can never be proven. The conclusion we come to is shunya, the void. Many people say that shunya, the void, is the end of the journey. Don't waste your time looking for Atman or Tripura and anything like this. The argument goes, it doesn't exist. Well, it's fallacious reasoning that ends up what it says here. Yet the void cannot be proven with. I skipped. Therefore, the thinker, the object, and the source or means of knowledge can never be proven. What is it that cannot be proven? The thinker, the object. There's the thinker, the object being thought about, and the source or means of knowledge can never be proven. The conclusion we come to is shunya, the void, which is the whole system of mind and thinking just collapses and says, well, it can't be figured out. It's just the void. Impressed by these arguments of Shunga, the students with shallow knowledge followed him. Yet the void cannot be proven without reliable evidence. Trying to prove the void ends in void. Impressed by these arguments of Shunga, the students with shallow knowledge followed him, accepting Shunyavada, the philosophy of the void. There's a very subtle point here. If you're listening to this, if you haven't run into it before out there in the world of humans, and you run it, you will run into this. It's out there. This argument is out there. I recently got a text message exchange somebody started with me within the last 2 weeks, basically along this lines. And it's just about impossible to have a conversation about it, because a person who has fallen into this line of thinking that it just falls off and you can't go anywhere, there's just shunya, there's just a void. It's unfortunate, but it happens, and this is what we're reading about here. Because of their confidence in Shunga, they got lost in the jungle of this philosophy and ruined their lives. But there were a few discriminating students who presented the views of Shunga to their learned master and received a proper answer, which dispelled their doubts. Therefore, only one who abandons mere logic and who reasons with the assistance of the genuine scriptures attains the higher state. This is a difficult concept to ponder about or to read or talk about. It's saying, I'm supposed to, it sounds almost like a religious belief. I'm supposed to have a blind faith belief in what this book is telling me. And that's not it. It's pointing out something that I think is true, that we all know, we've seen it happen before, of getting caught into a logical circle of thinking, and you just keep looping back over and over and over and over again, and you just end up more and more confused. And in the cognitive dissonance coming from that is when you finally give up and you say, screw it, it must be true. All there is shunya, the void. And we have just made a colossal failure of falling into the trap. And so then, if that has happened, then we can gain some assistance by getting unstuck by looking at what's being referred to here as the genuine scriptures. Hearing his wise beloved, Hemachuda was even more surprised from listening to Hemalekha, and finally admitted, darling, you are so learned. I did not know it before. He is finally figuring out, Hemachuda, the prince, is finally figuring out who it was that he married, who this beautiful young woman he found in the forest, who this really was. He's finally starting to figure it out. Darling, you are so learned. I did not know it before. You are blessed and I am blessed because I have your satsang. All that is attainable can be attained through firm conviction. How do you acquire that? Where should one place his faith and where not? There are numerous scriptures that seem to contradict each other. Coming to my mind as we're going through that part is this part when I run into one of these circular logic things that a person's wanting to do. It, to me, this is me speaking, just me as a person, it is utterly astounding to me how someone cannot be aware that behind all the jabbering and goings on of my mind, that there is something back here who is the consciousness behind all of this mental noise. It's just astounding to me that that has to be a logical debate. So people use the intelligence of mind to fight in a circle to try to convince me that there's nothing but void. There's no such thing as consciousness. And it is totally 100% self-evident. And yet you cannot logically, I haven't figured out how to logically debate somebody into that. It's just too obvious. And anyway, we're just stuck with this. And this text here is attempting to get this clear to us. And this is what Hemachuda is finally figuring out, that, darling, you are learned. I did not know it before. Listen to that sentence. It's gone through a lot of story here. If you've been hanging out with us as we've been going through it, or go back and read the book again, or go back and watch the previous times that we've come together to read or talk through this, and you'll see it for yourself. That, wow, he just kept learning and learning and learning, and still, finally, he said, I did not know it before. All of the previous stuff, and he'd get clear in his mind. You'd see it in the text. He'd get it clear. Finally, I understand something. At the last or two chapters back, everybody in the town became enlightened. The king became enlightened. Remember, there was a part of the story that said even the birds in the trees were enlightened and were singing about truth or Tripura and this and that. And still there was doubt that crept up. And that's what this chapter here that we're looking at starts with the title, The Doubts of Hemachuda. And so he has doubts one more time. And as I've mentioned to you in this journey through Tripura Rahasya before, this is one of the things that Patanjali outlines in chapter 1. There are what I call playfully 13 yucky things. These are predictable. One of them is doubt. Of course, this mind, this antakarna, of course it has doubts. That's the nature of how we are constructed. We have doubts, and so we fall into the trap of debate, trying to figure it out. And we're going to think our way through it, and ultimately it is self-evident. You cannot think your way through it. I know I'm kind of getting on a rant here, but so this is what Hemachuda has finally come to the point. I'm going to read it again. Hearing his wise beloved, who was Hemalekha, Hemachuda was even more surprised and finally admitted, "Darling, you are so learned. I did not know it before." Quite an admission. You are blessed, and I am blessed because I have your satsang. All that is attainable can be attained through firm conviction. How do you acquire that? Certainty.
It's 1:45.
Where should one place his faith and where not? There are numerous scriptures that seem to contradict each other. It just seems to be so. That's me speaking. There are even differences amongst preceptors and commentators about a single scripture. Also, one's own intellectual convictions vary from time to time. Therefore, what should one accept or discard? Every teacher considers his opinion to be valid and often refutes others' opinions, claiming them to be unconvincing. That's argument that's based on logical reasoning. A, then B, then C, then D, that kind of deductive reasoning. Because of this, one cannot reach a definite conclusion even through the scriptures. For example, the teacher who proclaimed Shunya, the void, to be the supreme reality, considered the theories of the others to be faulty. Look at the world around you. Isn't this true that sometimes you run into a devout religious person of any one of the religions or sects, and they are absolutely convinced of their version of truth and cannot see the obvious thing that everything is a manifestation of one that is something other than this mere shunya or void. And as the instant we see it that way, we see very clearly, no wonder there is all this tremendous diversity out here, and there is no conflict because there is underlying unity. And we see that it's utterly clear, but we don't see it because we get lost. For example, the teacher who proclaimed Shunya, the void, to be the supreme reality, considered the theories of the others to be faulty. His statements concur with the scriptures belonging to his own philosophical school, the person making the argument. His opinion agrees, this is me speaking, his opinion agrees with the scriptures that belong to his own school. Not surprising, isn't it? So why should we not rely on those statements? I believe you have already considered this question. Therefore, sweetheart, please help me understand clearly. And more is going to come. Next, in the next section, Hemalekha is going to answer this question, is going to explain it to him. It's pretty subtle stuff here, but this is an incredible text that we're looking at. And she's going to teach him how to find his way beyond, this is me speaking, beyond the appearance of conflict out here in the world of duality and diversity. It's just loaded in the world of diversity. It's loaded with the appearance of conflict. But gradually there are ways we can come to see there's no conflict. There's unity in diversity. And that's not just a catchphrase of a particular philosophy. We see it on Facebook memes all the time. We see comments like that that are very grand statements, but that are not really usually or often discussed in depth. Therefore, sweetheart, please help me understand clearly. And this is what she's going to do in the next section. Thus ends chapter 6. With the description of the importance of firm conviction on the path of enlightenment. It's the conviction on the path. So one of the convictions, this is me speaking, one of the convictions is, okay, this is confusing. Is the end of the journey just this inert shunya void, or is there more to it than that? And if there's if there's a part of our makeup that says there's something beyond this inert, latent shunya void, if that becomes clear and yet there still is confusion, to me speaking, this is a positive sign, because it's saying, I want to keep going. This is what Hemachuda is saying to Hemalekha. I want to keep going. I cannot settle for this comment. It's just something is flawed here. I want to keep going. Sweetheart, can you explain it to me? And she can, and she does, and this is where we're going, okay? Tremendous, tremendous journey that this text is, isn't it? And it's sort of mind-boggling at the same time, isn't it? Sort of can drive you crazy, but there's something to it, isn't there? There's something to it. So, to be continued. Hi, Ed. Ed snuck in. Ed is sitting there playing his bass. Boom, 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 boom. I can just hear Ed. Boom, 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 boom. Plays the bass. Raj, did you know that Ed plays the bass? I can see Raj sitting there playing his Yanni music with his piano, and there's Ed going boom, 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 boom. You know, I can't do the music, but he plays a bass guitar. Daniel plays a bass guitar too. Did you know that, Ed? Daniel's not here with us, but he pops in here with us sometimes. Anyway, is there anything beyond the bass guitar? Boom, 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 boom. Is there consciousness beyond Yanni? Is there something beyond the black, Raj? Ask your friend. And if he doesn't know, tell him that you have this inner sense with a sense of certainty that, yes, my friend Yanni, there is something beyond the black. It's not merely coming from the black. If it's coming from the black, there has to be something beyond the black for it to come through the black to here. And that statement of conviction is the firm faith. That's what this chapter is being talked about. It seems to me, whoever the hell I am. Anyway, thank you for visiting. Thank you, Adi, for hanging out. Adi is sitting here, hanging out, doing this game together. Looking very, very thoughtful, pondering, firm faith.
It's there.
It's there. It's there. He just keeps going. That's all we can do. This is it. This is it.
This is it.
Okie dokie. Thank you for playing that, Nilesh. Wow, Raj, you're able to put little symbols up there, and yet you're driving the car. Raj is driving the car on his way here, and that's going to be fun. Has a few days to just hang out together here and do lots of satsang and hanging out. That's what I call hanging out. So thank you all for visiting and playing. Okay, where's Roz? I know Roz, and Matri's laying over there on the couch. I don't know if she's still with us. She's probably about to say, I'm going to push the button, Roz. Something's crazy. I'm sorry, Ed, I missed which that was crazy was in reference to. Tushrain, huh? Good, Raj. Beyond the black. And of course, and you know the trap in what you just said, that beyond the black is pure consciousness. And I know, we both know that we're stuck with using words like that as if we've answered the question. Notice that it begs the question, well, what is pure consciousness? And then when we try to end that, this is where we end up in those infinite regression, the endless cycle of words and words and words and words. So the shunya void person would say back to you, Raj, well, okay, what is the meaning of pure consciousness? And you would attempt to answer it, and that would be challenged as being a part of the void. And then the cycle goes on and on and on. This is why ultimately that doesn't work. That's near the end of this that we were just looking at, that process doesn't work. So then Hemalekha Hemachuda is in a sense like being where Raja said pure consciousness, then it gets challenged. He ends at a point and he's saying to Hemalekha, okay, well then if that's the case, then where do I go from here? I know there's something beyond the black, but as soon as I say what I think it is, I'm off into a debate with those people again, and there seems to be no end to it. But I know something is there. What do I do? What do I do? And Hemalekha is going to explain it to him. To be continued. Thank you all for playing. I hope your mind is completely in cognitive dissonance and goofed up by this. Because if it is, then it leaves some part of your mind, your antakarna, some part of your intelligence open to listening to what Hemalekha has to say the next time, okay? So being confused is not a bad thing. Opens a door, okay? I'm going to push the button here. Bye-bye. Oh, thank you again for playing. See you soon, Raj. Let us know how you're doing. I pushed the first button. I have to push two buttons. Now I'm going to push the second button. And I'm just going to be aware of the silence that resolves all these questions. And it is to be found after the Om. And it is Tripura.